Kent, we're in downtown Toronto. Beautiful space, serene, lots of people around. You spent half your time in Haiti, in one of the poorest countries in the world. I mean, is it surreal for you to separate these two parts of your lives?
Yeah, the back and forth, something about doing it for years and years, it becomes a little bit normal, but then you get a little nervous when it becomes normal, and then other times it just feels really uncomfortable because the disparity of experience and what people have here and obviously don't have there.
I mean, is it difficult to tell people, to make them understand the disparity in a North American culture where we have so much?
Yeah, I don't think, it's hard to even imagine living on less than $2 a day, like maybe over 70% of people in Haiti do, just both what that means immediately and the long-term grind. At the same time, I think people are sympathetic, they care about it, but then, life has all its own demands up here, so I think in the busyness of life, it's hard to keep that in mind very often.
So Kent, your organization focuses on education for Haitians, but I mean, how do you deal with the crux of maybe getting an education but not actually having a job at the end of the day? How does your organization deal with that?
So we've done a few different things, experimenting with starting some small social businesses. We're trying to work now on helping teach entrepreneurial skills, both to even starting with primary school, just the basic foundation, and then with our seminary students, they've started making glue and they've started making some bracelets that I'm wearing. They're making all these different things and trying to think, how can they do something that they can sell locally, maybe sell overseas, and build that into their ministry. So it's thinking like you are, sometimes people will be able to get formal sector education, but often they just have to kind of make it work, and so trying to give people skills and encourage them in that way too.
The title of your new book is called Slow Kingdom Coming. I mean, give us an idea of what exactly that title means.
Jesus prayed 2,000 years ago, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And as I was thinking about this work and some of the slow change that happens here downtown in Toronto or in Haiti or in other places, thought, Jesus prayed, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven 2,000 years ago, and 2,000 years later, that kingdom still feels like it's slow coming sometimes. So the title came to mean, sort of a lament, like admitting the slow kingdom coming, whether it's a crisis or Fort McMurray or someone we know gets diagnosed with cancer, like it's a slow kingdom coming, but also hope, like we hope that this kingdom is coming, change happens, we see it in our world. And then ultimately the book focuses on the commitment, like how do we stay committed to participating in this kingdom coming through loving our neighbors well and being shaped by God's love.
So Ken, do you think that we're doing it too fast? Do you think that we are speeding through life, speeding through these social justice issues too fast?
I think it happens sometimes where you try to go too fast and then it doesn't have the kind of foundation that lasts for a long time. And I think sometimes our hearts pull us to go fast, and I think I'd like our heads to catch up, so we slow down enough to think, how do we really love the person the best way, or how are we asking the best questions, or how can we keep getting better at loving our neighbors with our very best selves? So that's the slowness I'm encouraging, is not any diminishment of how urgent it is, but slowing down enough to do it in a really thoughtful way.
Kent, there are so many young people that are passionate about social justice issues. From your perspective, someone that's been in the field for decades, what is your wise advice to us that are trying to get involved?
I love the excitement. I think your generation, I have so much hope, and I think there's so much thoughtfulness and so much information is available. So I think for me, it's can you harness all of that to do something that works for deep change? So I mean, it's sort of cliche, but it's not like posting on Facebook is a pretty minor thing, and you can post about all that, and then you just keep seeing more and more information, and eventually you can kind of burn out on that. But can you stay aware of everything, but where are you going to dig into something and be at it for a long time, so you can develop expertise, so you can make a deeper difference and use all the thoughtfulness that you use in your work, but also use it however you're engaged in social justice.
Kent, you talk about in your book about these 5 practices for all people that want to pursue social justice. I mean, out of those 5, what was the most difficult one for you personally?
That's a great question. So the second practice I write about is confession. And in that, I actually write these 7 different confessions and invite the reader in with me. So to confess to me, because I've done this work in Haiti and written books about it, so confessing that I like to feel good when I give, or I'd like to be recognized for what I give. And so that leads me in then to thinking, it's a little embarrassing to confess that. But then I can also confess, I'm coming from a position of privilege, with my passport and the ability to go down and come back, as able. But then I find if I confess, I want to feel good. If I confess my privilege, that can kind of open and free me to serving better, because then it becomes a little bit less about me and more about helping in the best way possible.
This is a difficult industry. I mean, so many people experience burnout. I mean, how do you work through that? How do you prevent that from happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think times I even say in the preface of the book, like, you want to just stay in bed, because you don't want to get out because it seems too hard, too much to take on. And so I think in this book, what I want to do is invite people to, and partly I was inviting myself, to try to, well, where am I called? I can't do everything, but where is my calling? Where can I make a difference? Where can I find joy in serving God and serving my neighbor in a way that makes a difference? And these practices are a way, I think, to not avoid burnout, but confess that we get burned out sometimes. And what are approaches we can take where we can stay urgent, stay for the long term, but not take on the weight of the whole world in a way that's not sustainable. So to me, some of these practices can help someone, like, get excited and get started, but then get started kind of with an approach that's going to keep you going for a long run.